Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. I would like to take the opportunity and say that in these days, Soroka Hospital and CyberSpark and the Israeli National Cyber Bureau, together with Kupat Cholim, are aiming to look at Soroka as not only a digital hospital, but probably a leader in terms of being cyber secured, to become not only secured for itself, but to become a better site for all the developments and all the cyber technologies that are being researched and developed in the park itself. So we definitely look at Soroka as a hospital as part of the entire campus, starting from the military, high-tech park, university, and Soroka. Without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Amos Katz to talk about medical and healthcare vulnerability. Please.
Thank you very much. I have here two hats. One is to give the lecture. The other is one of you hosts here. And I do welcome you, and I think it's a very important initiative. And I thank Ronnie, and I thank Professor Rifa Karmi, the president of the university, that is behind all the initiative of the Advanced Technology Park and moving the university toward the cyber and all the advances in this area. As the Dean of the Faculty of Health Sciences, our vision is a comprehensive Faculty of Health Sciences. We are training and physician as well as medical workers as well as researchers, and the collaboration with the industry and collaboration with the Advanced Technology Park and the Cyber Park is part of our vision and of being a comprehensive medical faculty. And now let's move to the issue of medical cybersecurity vulnerabilities. And I'm still a practicing cardiology in the area of electrophysiology, which is arrhythmia. And I'm going to address this issue of cybersecurity in the area of implantable electronic devices, which is pacemaker, defibrillator, and implantable devices for recording. Let's go to the vision. We are named after Ben Gurion, and I usually start most of my lectures in some aphorism that taken from Ben Gurion Shak, which is saying that it's in the Negev that the Jewish scientific talent and ability to research shall be tested. And another aphorism says, wisdom goes with thought. It's written, whoever seeks wisdom, south he shall go. And I allowed myself to add, cybersecurity goes with thought. That's for you, Ronnie. Anyway, cyber hacker threatening security of life-saving medical devices. The media is full with those issues. The old part of it, that cybersecurity threat to computer equipment, anything connected to the internet, is known. And it's an old problem. The new one is the medical cybersecurity concerns. Hackers can attack, theoretically, implantable wireless medical devices and other life-saving medical equipment. The issue is beyond data. Can they interrupt, stop, or activated medical devices? And there's a lot of debate about this issue. Some new data, again from the daily text, one of the literature from cybersecurity. On October 2016, Johnson & Johnson informed that more than 100 diabetic patients that one of its insulin pump could be hacked. The device could be attacked, disabling the pump or alter the dose, and they actually can kill the patient, theoretically. Another issue, a few months ago, MedSec, a cybersecurity firm, exposed a life-threatening security vulnerability which endangers the safety of patients who own defibrillators and pacemaker manufactured by St. Jude. They attacked specifically St. Jude, and I'm going to address this issue again. For those of you that are not physicians, I'll give a brief overview of what I'm calling the cardiovascular implantable electronic device, the CIED, which are pacemaker, which are treating slow heart rate, defibrillator, which are treating fast heart rate and life-saving heart rate, an implantable loop recorder, which is that is actually the size. It's a continuous recording ECG that can be injected under the skin and transmitted device. What the pacemaker are doing, they have the therapy part and the diagnostic part. The therapy, as I said before, therapy for bradycardia, slow heart rate, and conduction abnormality. They can treat heart failure to resynchronize the electrical activity of the heart. And the diagnostic part, we continuously collecting data and transmitting data about the battery, about the activity of the electrode, about arrhythmia, and even about the activity of the patient. I can see whether the patient moves, and in the future it might have a GPS in it, so the big brother is really watching you. Implantable Cardioverter-Defibrillator, the therapy is beyond being a pacemaker. It's treating sudden cardiac death, which is usually ventricular fibrillation and ventricular tachycardia. Diagnosis is similar. There is an implantable loop recorder which also transmitted data. It's only a diagnostic device. Let's have some animation. That's a pacemaker pacing the atrium and the ventricle. That's for treating slow heart rate. Implantable device, the ICD, Implantable Cardioverter-Defibrillator. For those of you, the Hebrew Academy decided that the name for it will be a maf'em. Interesting. I suggested to them to call it Mechaye, but they didn't like it. Anyway, that's the defibrillator, and it can act by pacing the heart faster than the arrhythmia and terminating the arrhythmia without a shock, which is more pleasant. And the other option is when the patient is going into ventricular fibrillation, which otherwise, if we are not treating him, he will die, the device can shock him. Really unpleasant treatment, considering the alternative. That's a good treatment and a life-saving treatment. And finally, the devices can also be a sensor. That's an example of sensing the amount of fluid in the lung and detecting pulmonary edema. So it's beyond the electrical therapy, and we are getting a lot of information for the patient. The question is how we are communicating with the devices. How can we learn and get the information for the devices, and how we can program the device, because we have to alter and to change the device. Information is important, information is power, but the devices are programmable. I can change the activity. The simple and the oldest way is directly. We have a programmer that by some kind of radio frequency we are communicated with him. In the recent years there is a short distance wireless local capability. The device is transmitting information to the programmer, and I can program the device while the patient is walking in a distance 5 to 10 meters from me. Theoretically, if I can program him by a wireless, somebody else can do it. And the most advanced issue is remote monitoring. The pacemaker and the devices and the loop recorder are transmitting data by radio frequency telemetry to a remote transmitter that is usually at the patient home, by the cellular network or by the internet to a center database, and then to the physician office, and you actually can see it. And that's framing the problem. Technical advances have resulted in transformation in healthcare delivery, and we heard what is going on in Soroka. There is increased interconnectivity between the medical devices and other clinical systems. However, it's exposed them vulnerable to security breach in the same way other network computing systems are vulnerable. Connectivity of those medical devices will directly affect the clinical care and the patient safety. And integration of medical devices, networking, software, and operating system means that the relatively isolation that we experienced in the past and the safety of medical devices are challenged. And that's basically the issue. Let's see a few examples of there are four major devices companies. One of them is a German one, Biotronic, and three others are American devices. And let's see the example of how we are getting information from the patient in by a remote access. Biotronic device is called home monitoring. It actually was the first one to be developed more than 15 years ago, and the original prototype was developed in Israel by engineering that came out of Rafael. And it's called remote monitoring. The device is transmitting data at a short range to a home base. Automatically data is transmitted to a cardio messenger that is usually in the bedroom. And there's an alert notification can be transmitted within minutes to the physician or to a following center. The transmission between the device and the cardio messenger is an RF transmission. I'm not familiar with all the technical data. That's for you, the cybersecurity and engineering. And worldwide monitoring covers the global GSM transmission. So the data of the patient is transmitted all over the world by GSM, which can be hacked theoretically. And it's supposed, and it is actually a safe way of transmission. However, that might be a problem. I can tell you that I got information from patients in Africa, in Russia, almost real time when they have problems. That's typical for the three other major companies. That's Boston Scientific. They have a similar device, some minor differences, and they're transmitting on the web. Medtronic, one of the biggest and the latest devices company, are transmitting data wireless and non-wireless in the patient home. However, to the center, it goes on the internet. St. Jude, that we mentioned their name, being accused of being unsafe, have a similar system. So currently, the remote monitoring capability is diagnostic only, getting information. Currently, we cannot program the patient device from remote monitoring. Technically, it can be done. It's closed and it's secure, but theoretically, a very talented hacker can do it. To the best of my knowledge, it never happened. However, it can be done. And cybersecurity vulnerability associated with medical devices, transfer from isolated device to the network, detention, security, and safety. It's not that just a technical problem. Contention between regulation and manufacturers, and let's see a few examples. I'll go to the web, and the web is full of it.
A cybersecurity firm has found major vulnerabilities that would allow hackers access to pacemakers, anesthesia devices, monitoring stations, and other life-sustaining medical equipment. A threat so real, the FDA is taking action. It's the storyline in a harrowing scene in the Showtime series Homeland. Terrorists send a signal to a pacemaker, an attempt to take down America's vice president. But it's not just the stuff of fiction. Stuart McClure of the firm Cylance shows another device, an insulin pump that could easily be compromised.
All you need is a simple little antenna, something like a 900 megahertz antenna that you plug into your laptop, and you develop a little program to connect to this wirelessly over radio, and then you can take over the actual system itself, increase the maximum bolus, which is the maximum amount of insulin that can be dispensed, and then dispense that particular insulin to the patient. And that's how dangerous this stuff can be, and how very, very real world it is.
McClure once demonstrated
for sake of
down
time,
fetal monitors for women with high-risk pregnancies. The computer systems for these devices are interconnected, wide open, and widespread.
On an average day, Beth Israel Deaconess has 15,000 devices connected to its network. things you wouldn't normally think of as being connected to a network, like a monitor or an IV pump, today are smart.
Dr. John Halamka says his hospital
That's a
does
dangerous
firewall
smart
audit
hospital.
systems to prevent hacking. But even with the FDA tightening up on manufacturers, experts say it'll be a long time before the manufacturers really get safer devices in place.
And that's what was shown. The terrorists supposedly attacked the vice president, and actually, Dick Cheney, the vice president of the United States, had the implantable defibrillator, which has the capabilities. And maybe that was the reason for the second Iraq war, I don't know. Anyway, and he was shocked by the device. However, it has a capability of home and remote monitoring. After the movie, his physician, his cardiologist, turned it off by the demand of the CIA so it was turned off, and it happened in Homeland, and he told actually 60 Minutes that it was turned off. Another issue is, can we shock a patient with a device, with a defibrillator, from remote access? There are several hackers on the web that are claiming that they are capable of doing it. It actually never happened, at least we don't know. And there's a movie that I'm not going to show, that a device is shocking a good New York steak. However, they claim they can do it. What's really, that's in August 2016, I mentioned the St. Jude issue, the short seller and the cybersecurity reached a potential life-threatening cyber vulnerability in a hard device from St. Jude. St. Jude said, well, the allegations were false. The FDA began an investigation and eventually didn't find anything. What happened actually then is that St. Jude was supposed to be they want to sell St. Jude to another company. They tried to reduce the stock market value of St. Jude, so they came with this idea. It's under investigation now. It actually never happened. We know, going back to a serious issue, the FDA is preparing to issue a formal guidance on how medical device makers should handle report about cyber vulnerability. And the FDA is claiming, and to the best of my knowledge, has said that it knows of no case where hackers have exploited cyber vulnerability to harm the patient. What St. Jude did, and what every device company should do, is they created the Cybersecurity Medical Advisory Board on October 18. The board, whose membership has yet to be finalized, is technology expert at St. Jude Medical, internet researchers to help and maintain it. What's actually available in the market in the implantable device? Let's take the Biotronic example. The information is encrypted, unique identification, and the information in the GSM is also encrypted. They have headquarters in Berlin, maintaining the data and secure, and they have actually a statement on security of patient data, statement of security of wireless communication, and statement of patient access to cardiac device. Same issue with Medtronic, and I'm not going to go into details, and to the same as St. Jude, they have a flow data and data protection mechanism for their remote monitoring and access to the data, which is supposed to cover it. They're even considering a private network to transmit the data. So if we may go to the conclusion, in the healthcare, patient safety will be always come before cybersecurity. The challenge is to close the gap between the two objectives, minimizing compromises and ensuring safety, while being responsive to the evolving cybersecurity threat environment. Medical devices, medical network, security should be an integrated component of cybersecurity protection. What will be the future of cybersecurity in medical devices? medical devices manufacturers to prioritize cybersecurity in collaboration with other stakeholders, cybersecurity researchers, healthcare providers, patient and government agencies. Means that cybersecurity vulnerabilities are more likely to be identified, assessed, and fixed in a timely manner before they can cause patient harm. So the future is here. Let's keep it secure. Thank you.